We're going live, and we are live.
Well, hello, everybody.
Hi guys.
Going to refresh.
Hopefully today we are not going to have any problems, but I'm just putting it out there that our internet has been really sketchy, and I can go on my phone. That's all set up if we need to. So we'll see how it goes. So, is anyone else having problems with their internet? I know Nancy said she's always having problems with her internet. How about any of you guys where you live? And hi, Johnny. Hi, Wild Rose and Essence and Simon and Jen. Hi, Mandy. How is everyone doing today? They're probably still catching up because I'm still showing. Oh, okay. All good here. All right, good. Wasn't sure if they could see us because it's not updating on my end over here.
I had to refresh my computer screen.
I better not do that.
No.
That'll probably knock me off.
It's interesting. It's lagging on the computer versus when I see you.
It always lags on the computer.
Oh, does it? Well, it's my first live. I have no idea.
Yeah. All good here too. Okay, cool. So we are here with Nancy of Nancy Texas Rose. Thank you for joining me today, sweetie.
Rachele, thank you so much for doing this. And I'm excited about it. Thank you, everybody that's in the room. I'm not sure I can multitask and say hello to everyone individually, but thank you for being here.
That's all right. I already got it covered. So we'll just go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Why did you name your channel what you named it?
Well, originally, when I was kind of surfing the web and on YouTube and found TerraTube about 3 years ago, I just came up with a generic name of Texas Rose. And my nickname is actually Rose. And when I was in corporate America working, I never used my real name online. I always used Rose. So I went, well, I'm in Texas. I'm a rose gardener. It fits. And, that's kind of how it happened. And then in December of last year, I went to log into my YouTube account and found out the whole thing had been deleted. I had to find all my channels all over again, everything. Oh. And so I created it with a new email and decided to just keep the old name. And I started making content like late February. It was a VR to Simon. Mm-hmm. And people I know in real life are like, why don't you just use your real name? And they're like, it confuses us because some people I know in real life call me Rose, some call me Nancy. And so I was like, oh, I don't know if I can use my real name online. And then the more I did it, the easier it got. And so that's why I added the Nancy to the Texas Rose part, because so many people that knew me before always knew me as Rose online. So that's how that started. Complicated, but nothing special.
Hey, it works, right?
It works.
So how would you label your spiritual path?
I am a pagan, and I have been pagan for at least 30 years. I spent some time as a Buddhist, and I was raised in a really crazy, eclectic environment, and I'm a kitchen witch. So that's how I would describe it.
Okay, wonderful. So you said that you were raised in a pretty eclectic path. Did you veer off from your family now, or?
This is going to take me a minute because it's complicated, but it formed everything of my adult life. My mother was divorced, and we were one of the few single parent family homes. This was in the 70s, and my father was in Vietnam, and I lived in a neighborhood that was multicultural. There was a circle of my close friends. There were 9 of us, and we all had such diverse backgrounds. And there were a couple of single parent homes in there, but you also had dads who were off in Vietnam. So the dads who were actually home kind of stepped in and kind of took that role for some of us. And with all these moms, they all depended on each other. So you couldn't get away with anything. It's like you had 9 mamas watching out after what you were doing, So, but they were from like I had my 2 closest friends were actually First Nation sisters, and their family was Apache, and their father was a storyteller. And I used to be fascinated by the stories he would tell of his culture. And he actually pierced my ears when I turned 13, the old-fashioned way with the needle. And yeah, he did hurt his daughter's nose. And I'm like, oh, she could do her nose. And this is like in 1975 or something, right? I'm like, oh, if you can do your nose, I'll do my ears. And another one of our good friends in the group, she was the most beautiful girl I've ever seen, and she was Thai, and she was Buddhist. So I got to experience her culture. To this day, I'm in love with Thai food from this. And I got to experience and question, tell me about what you believe, why you believe it. So I had her. And then another one of my good friends, she and her brother, their father was an AME minister. So I would go to church with them. The AME church is the African Methodist Episcopal Church. So I went to church with them and got to experience their world. And then another good friend of mine, her mother was from Sweden, and her fathers, they were all hippies. And I say fathers because she had 2, and they were brothers, and we just never really asked. It was the 70s, right? And they were so cool because they were into transcendental meditation. They had tarot cards and Ouija boards, and they were all musicians. So I loved hanging out with them, and I loved going over there. My mother, not so much, me going over there, but I loved them. And then my older brother, his best friend was Choctaw. And his mother, Sammy Jo, I loved her. She was the first person I ever met that publicly said, hey, I'm a witch. And I just thought she was the coolest person I ever met. And she had, hex bags and things in her car, and she had the pentacles on the door. And I used to quiz, she was an herbalist. I used to just quiz her. So that was really eclectic. And my mother's side of the family were Scottish Presbyterian that had the site, as they call it. And my father's side was Irish Catholic. And my mother was extremely psychically gifted, like my grandmother, but it scared my mother. And she would always run into the church when it would show itself to her because she wasn't trained to it. And it was so crazy. I grew up with like Chariots of the Gods on the coffee table. I read that when I was 9 years old. We had a Ouija board. She had tarot cards, and then she would burn everything, go back into the church, and then it was just a strange upbringing. And she would always take us from church to church to denomination to denomination. And when I was a kid, I'm like, why can't we just be normal? Why is my mother Lucy Ricardo? But as an adult, I appreciate that so much because I was exposed to so much as a child. And I think that helped really inflame this love that I have of culture and mythology, because I got to meet all these people at such a young age that had all these different backgrounds, and it fascinated me, and it still does to this day. And as far as like my birth family, I have one remaining brother. I lost my younger brother 10 years ago, and he's in Florida. I'm not really connected to him very much. And I raised my son as a pagan, and he married a pagan girl. And my husband is just really neutral. He just leaves me alone to do my thing. He just doesn't want me to share it with his family. Now, however, there's 3 family members of his who are so open to everything, and they're always, hey, what can you teach me about, this and spell work, or about energy or tarot, and so, but there's some I keep it from out of respect for him, but for the most part, I'm pretty open. So
that's
long
fabulous.
answer to a short question.
Oh, I loved hearing all that. I can't even imagine being surrounded by that much stuff as a kid. I can't even imagine where I would be if I had that many influences at that young of an age. No wonder you've been reading tarot for, what'd you say, 40 years?
40 years. And
That's
I mean, it was
fantastic.
such a blessed way to grow up in hindsight now that I look at it. And I look at it, kind of makes me sad about today with all the division you have going on, because I look at how many different ethnicities and religions there were in my neighborhood, and it didn't matter. These women, they helped each other because they needed each other. I mean, they would give, the hand-me-down clothes flying like you wouldn't believe. Food out of the gardens back and forth, watching out for the kids. And my mother worked an awful lot. She worked at night, and I would be spending the night in one of my friends' home. It didn't matter what color or religion they were. They worked together. It was like that whole it takes a village thing. So I'm so sad to see what's going on in the world today. And I was raised in the Deep South, where it should have been chaotic, but it wasn't in the area where I was raised, because these women needed each other and they made a community. And I think that's what we're lacking today, is community.
That's just a beautiful thing. Yeah. Yeah. Your story of growing up is so amazing. Beautiful, Nancy, says Jen. Science to Soul Tarot with Jen. That Jen. Because there's so many Jens.
Oh, yeah. She called her mother. My mother was like a tree-hugging Lucy Ricardo with an evangelical artistic flair. She was a character. She put up our Christmas tree one year right before Halloween. I mean, I was 13. Can you imagine what my friends, they had a field day with that one, right? They're like, your mama is crazy. So my younger, we're like, yeah, we know. My younger brother and I got all these little spiders, and we put them all under Christmas tree, and we'd close the curtains, so when she drove up from work, she couldn't see what we'd done to the trees. She'd come in and she'd open the curtains. She didn't know till she went to take it down that we had like little spiders and all kind of stuff in the tree. I mean, because I mean, that just is a little sample of my mother.
That's wonderful.
We always fought over religion. I mean, until her dying day. And I used to just love to ask her a question that would challenge her. And I miss that now that she's gone. But boy, we had some bouts. I can tell you, when she was alive. So,
yeah, they're saying sounds like an amazing upbringing. Absolutely.
It was eclectic.
I love Lucy. Yeah. So, do you feel supported by your family spiritually?
Yes, especially because, I raised my son pagan, and he's married to a pagan girl. They plan on raising their children that way. As far as birth family, I have a cousin that is into tarot, and I did that to her. But in my birth family, it was only my little brother, and I lost him 10 years ago to suicide. And he had been in a cult and everything, and that's why that whole thing that Simon did recently really touched me. He could never deprogram from it. And but we spent a lot of time. We were part of my brother had founded the North Texas Paranormal Society. We used to do a lot of those things. We read tarot. We went to the Kirtans at the Hare Krishna temple. We'd go to various things at the Buddhist temple. It's one thing that was wonderful about living in the Dallas area. Everything was there. We went to the ADF Grove. That's the American Druid. They would have the open grove things. And so we experimented, and I took my son to all of this, and I told him, I want you to decide. And so I was pleased. I mean, it's his choice how he lives his life, but he was exposed to all of it. And I love it. They'll come out to the country, and we do ritual together, and my son and daughter-in-law both read cards, and they do the runes and all of it. I love that. And I'm like, when y'all have some babies, I'm teaching my grandbabies to read tarot. I'm like, I got
love
the
that.
Mons Tarot and it's ready.
You gotta
I'm
get the little
ready.
baby size ones, right?
Huh?
Oh, that's excellent. You gotta get the
Yes,
little baby size ones,
I
right?
got, yeah, I'll need to get a mini tarot, but yes, I will definitely teach them to read at a young age. And
Right on. I love that.
I'm looking forward to being a grandma. I can't wait. They can wait, but I'm ready whenever they are, you know?
That's funny. But no pressure, right?
No pressure. I want them to be ready.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So do you feel a stronger connection with any of the elements?
Water and earth. And
Okay.
it's always been water, but it's earth now that I'm out in the country and I have a garden and uh, I'm outside so much here on the ranch that I feel really connected to the earth element like I never really did before. I always way identified with water the most, but now I would say earth is equally as strong.
Nice. So do you have a favorite season of the year?
Autumn, without a doubt, hands down. I'm in Texas. It's 9,000 degrees. So I
Yeah.
love autumn and then I love winter, then spring, and then summer. You tolerate it.
Well, what
It's
are
just,
the temperatures that normally run like in wintertime for you guys?
uh, we have some days. I'm in the northern part of Texas, and we're not too far from the Red River, so it gets a little colder here than it would, say, in Dallas or whatever. I'm about 100 miles from Dallas. Uh, we might have some days that get too freezing or below freezing, but generally, it hovers 40 degrees, Fahrenheit. And in the summer, like right now outside today, it's 96. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's why.
That's a warm one. Yeah. So, this is a silly question. Do you use divination? If so, what types? So we know you do tarot.
I have been reading tarot and playing cards for about 40 years, and I read runes. I started reading runes about 20, let's see, when my son was a baby. So about 25 years ago, I started doing runes. And this is going to sound really strange, but birds. I'm an avid bird watcher. And by watching them, you can divine a lot of things about the natural world. I can tell what the weather is going to do. You can follow kind of the movements of the wildlife here. And that's something I never would have experienced till I moved out to the country. It's been quite fascinating, actually, to just observe and watch. So,
I have a question for you then.
okay.
Funny that this came up because this morning, a friend of mine, when she called me to let me know that there was a vulture that was in her backyard, a dead vulture.
A dead one.
A dead vulture. What do you think? I mean, I was trying to understand, so I started going through and reading some of the things that are associated with vultures.
Vulture is amazing because it is the bird of resurrection, rebirth. It was associated with the Egyptian queens. That's their symbol. It's the vulture. And
Oh, how fast.
yeah, it's amazing bird. And usually I only see them dead here if they've been hit in the road or if another bird of prey has gotten a hold of it. So it's powerful. I mean, I would take that as a sign for her. If it was me and I was looking at the whole thing, that's a powerful sign of something about to regenerate in her life that's been stagnant. And that always is.
I got goosebumps. I'm going to let her know. Thank you.
Yeah, let her know that.
We were trying to figure it out because, I mean, that's a weird thing to find. I mean, you might find other birds, but usually
That is strange. And that tells me it's going to be something really important or major in her life because that is an unusual occurrence to find a vulture like that. I mean, it's nothing for me to come home and see a hawk or an owl sitting on my fence. And, we raise deer and there's so much wildlife. You have vultures all over the place, but I've never just seen one lying dead unless it's been hit in the road. That's wild.
And it was in the middle of her backyard.
That's a new one for me.
Yeah.
But I would say, knowing what I know about vulture, anything that's been really stagnant, it's time for it to go. It's a whole major change. Something that needed to die literally is clearing out. It's a very powerful signal to her.
Wow. Ooh, that is awesome. What is your sun sign?
I am a Pisces, and I was born on the spring equinox, just a few hours before the sun went into Aries. So,
You're a cusp.
yeah, I am cusp. I was born on the equinox. So,
Very nice. By any chance, do you know what your moon and your rising are?
my moon is in Scorpio, and my rising is in Capricorn.
Okay. All right. So you got a lot of water going on, and fire and earth.
Yes, I have the least of air in my chart. That's the least, and it's pretty well balanced between the other three in my chart. I think I'm strongest on the water, though.
Yeah. So do you know what your tarot birth cards are?
Yes, there's Strength in the Star.
That's mine.
Life Path 8.
Right on. Yeah, that's the next question, Life Path 8.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And do you feel that the Life Path 8 seems right for you?
I think, yes. I think for the most part, yes. And, but I think a lot of my life has been about looking for that balance and center point, which to me, I think is more of a temperance thing. But I think that has to do with that equinox influence in my chart. And, I told you I had the really eclectic upbringing, and that's an understatement. My mother was an artist and she was a musician, and our house was always full of interesting people, So it just wasn't like, I used to look at normal suburbia and go, oh God, I wish I had that. And as an adult, that really bores me. So it's trying to find, that balance point and stay on that balance point, because I get bored super easy. I always have to be learning something. And I think that's part of that. So I'm not sure. In some ways it does, but I think it's really more of a temperance thing.
Yeah. And temperance, 1 foot on the land and 1 foot on the water, right?
Yeah.
Or in the water.
Yeah.
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 So do you know what your significator card in the tarot is?
This is interesting because when I was learning to read tarot, everyone said, oh, well, you're a Pisces, you're going to be the Queen of Cups. And it fit, but not really. And then when I read Ian Daniels' book about your in the Tarot of the Vampires, and he does your court cards according to your birth sign, he said it's Queen of Wands for the birth sign because it's the watery aspect of fire. And I always identified with the Queen of Wands more. And I don't know how many people go, oh, but you're a Pisces, you're not supposed to be the Queen of Wands. I'm going, I was born, 6 hours before Aries. Maybe,
Right.
But it fits. I mean, she gets bored easy, and it fits.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when I was,
so much more too. I mean, you have 12 houses full of different stuff too.
Right.
That makes up the whole.
Yeah. So I'd say Queen of Wands.
Very cool. So, do you have a current favorite deck right now, or a few?
It's always more than one, right?
Yeah.
Let me see. My number one favorite deck for the last year has been the Philarcos Tarot. It never leaves my side. When I travel, it goes with me. It stays on my desk, and this deck is really, really special to me. And I'm surprised it stayed at number one for a year, honestly. But I love it, and so I have that one. And then the other one is a new one. Mags, the Woodland Hag, her oracle deck that she created, the Tree Whisper Oracle. I would say right now these are my two favorite decks. This deck is amazing that she did.
Well, let's see a few of those, honey. Let's see.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't seen that one yet.
This deck actually, I get emotional when I look at it. Let me see.
Wow.
I'm trying to figure out how to do this.
Wow.
This is
Just right
incredible.
straight in front of you also.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
That is really
This
cool.
deck is incredible. You can see the spirits in the trees.
I love how tall those are. How long? Did you cut those down or is that how they came?
That's how they came. It came with square corners, and I did round it. I was really nervous to do that because I would have to say this is probably my most prized possession in my deck collection.
I need
This
to
deck, I mean, even just looking at it now, the energy of it, it feels so sacred. And everyone I've shown this to in person has been like, oh, you know, I do hope Mags will consider trying to get this out there in a more widely publicized way because this deck is truly phenomenal. So I would say out of all of them, those two are my most favorite right now. So I'll move those out of the way.
By any chance, did you do a flip through of that one on your channel, honey?
I did.
I need to
And
check.
I literally am in tears in it, and I couldn't stop it. It was that emotional of a response. And when I was flipping through that, I had two cards that when I showed it, the owl was hooting outside my window. And one of those cards has become a stalker card. And literally, as I'm working with her, I'll hear the owl. And the card is called Beyond. Tell me, that's kind of odd.
Oh my goodness.
You know, the owl being the psychopomp, and that makes me a little nervous. The owl will always appear to me before someone I know passes, and that's been something that's happened since I was a child. So to get that Beyond, I feel like at first it made me nervous, and now I feel like it's just telling me to embrace that as a gift and not be afraid of it. Because when my husband's niece died, 3 days before she passed, I mean, an owl hit my windshield on my car. And I was like, uh-oh, we're going to lose somebody in the family. And I knew it. So I think that with that being titled Beyond, for me, the message is don't be afraid of it. Just sit with it and be prepared.
Jonathan asks, what deck was Nancy showing?
It is called the Tree Whisper deck, and it's by Mags, the Woodland Hag. And I think she has her name is Maggie Makwa on here. If you go to the Woodland Hag YouTube page, she has her email address in there. I think it's woodland hag or woodland.hag@gmail. You can message her to see if she has more of these available and how you might can get it. This deck is truly, truly special. And I've had a lot of decks over the years. And so it is, I think, probably my most prized deck in my collection out of every one I own.
And when you were talking about the owl hitting the window,
yes,
is that always a signal that, because you know what, somebody that just happened to also, and that's what she said was, oh, a bird just hit my window, somebody's going to die. I had that twice, like 3 weeks ago, on two separate days, a bird hit my window.
Then I would say just be alert, because when I was a child, let's go back to, remember I told you my friends that I grew up with who were First Nation, their father, an owl was sitting out on their chimney for a few days. And he said, oh, the owl is calling someone's name. And I said, what do you mean? Because that means someone's going to be called back to the Great Spirit, because they were traditional in their beliefs. And that was really the first time I've heard of it. But since then, I know that it's common in Persian folklore and like up in the Alaskan with the Tlingit people, they believe that if the owl calls your name, it's your time. And the night, I'll never forget this one. One night, my roommate and I came out, and she said, Nancy, come downstairs. I said, I hear it. There was an owl sitting on our chimney, hooting down the chimney. It was just huge. And it looked right at us, and we're like, oh, somebody's going to pass. So the next day I came home at lunch to let my dog out. The same owl was flying around. Third morning is when I got the phone call that my brother had taken his life.
Oh,
the owl.
my gosh.
And so I was like, okay. So that's what made me start paying attention to it. So if they're doing an unusual behavior, watch out for it,
There's something
because
there.
it's a psychopomp in many cultures that will be a warning that someone, or I don't like to use the word warning anymore. I'd like to say a notice that someone's going to cross over, that you're aware of, that you know, or you're connected to, because it's an unusual behavior. Just because I have so many owls on the property, just seeing them flying around during the daytime is not that big a deal. But if they did something strange, like flying into the windshield of my car, I take notice of it.
Yeah. And these were not owls. These were birds. One was actually a baby. I didn't see the other one, but one was a baby, and it actually hit my sliding door.
Wow.
A baby
Well,
bird.
I've had that happen. A hummingbird did that once before. Oh, it broke my heart because it broke its neck.
I'm so
Oh, I
sad.
hated that.
Yeah. All this information, right? And I do pay attention now. When I mean, I'll see birds. When I see cardinals, I always hear that cardinals is like a sign from, someone's trying to get in contact with you from the other side. Tons of
And
crows.
yeah,
We
and
got
cardinal,
crows next door. And
and I was raised and see, my grandmother, she was a botanist, and so she had all these herbs, and so was her mother, and she had a lot of folklore, like she used to plant by moon. So it's no wonder I became pagan when I look back at my upbringing. But she would talk about the birds, and she would always say that she saw a cardinal, that she felt like it was the paternal ancestral side speaking to you. And she always said that hummingbirds in general were ancestors. And let's see. And she always felt like doves were the maternal side, an ancestor or someone trying to contact you. That was her belief, and I still kind of hold on to that, just from.
well, Mendy just said, I always see cardinals when I'm thinking about my mother or grandmother. And, I seen this thing, one of the home improvement shows or whatever, and this lady was talking about, they were looking to buy a new home. And she was looking for a sign whether or not this was the house. And they were on the back deck, and a cardinal came up, and she said, oh, that's a sign from my mom that this is the house that we're supposed to get. And I thought, wow, really? Cardinals?
Well,
And we've got them that come in.
Yeah, I mean, because they represent, okay, you think about why they're associated with Christmas, because they're red and they're bright, and they represent life and life's blood during the dead part of the year. So it's always a good sign to see a cardinal, always. And the male cardinal is so involved in taking care of its young that I think that's probably why my grandmother had the paternal association with it, because they're also an active parent. So it's a sign of being nurtured, and because energetically they say the masculine energy is the stability and that sort of thing. So to me it would make sense that she saw one for her home.
Right. Amazing. Marge said, or Leanne, I should say, said, I see wild rabbits when it's time to change residence.
Interesting. I'm just now looking at the chat. The crickets.
I'm sure there's some people that came in hi Aquarius, hi Jonathan, hi Becca.
Hello everyone. I'm not used to doing a live, so I'm not sure how to do both of these at one time. I have a whole new appreciation for all of you who do this.
Yeah. Hi, Erie. Hi, Courtney.
Oh, I see Becca.
Perhaps it's like a death totem, like my mom hearing crickets when someone's about to pass.
Oh, and Jonathan says he gets cardinals when he's reading people.
Oh, when I'm doing readings. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Mindy there with the cardinals.
Yeah, very interesting.
I love that. I love hearing that, because I said I'm an avid bird watcher, and the auguries and what they mean, and I love, mythology and folklore, and birds are so dominant and so important in folklore around the world. So it all ties together in some way, or another.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, do you have a current favorite tarot card?
Out of like a particular deck or just in general?
Like, if you, like, for instance, the
Like a make or break card?
Arcana, like your favorite card in the major arcana, not necessarily
It's the star.
Could be the star.
The star, and then temperance. Yeah. I love the star. So,
Hi,
and
Sandra.
I looked at that and thought, oh, I hope she doesn't mean one particular star. I would not be able to pick just one. I think it's a favorite, and then no, it's this. Y'all know how that goes.
Yes.
That rotating cast of characters.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, I think it was Robin from Toadstool Tarot that had us do the
yeah, I did that
one out of the major. It took me like 2 days to do that, of going through, and I only picked like half of my decks to go through to look. I had my own time, but it was fun because it was so.
That was fun, and yeah, I think only 1 or 2 of mine have changed since I did that response to him. But that was hard, and because it's a rotating cast of characters. We get a new deck, we have a new love. And
I cheated anyways. I picked 3. I didn't pick one of each. I picked 3 because I'm a cheater.
I did 3 for strength, and let's see. I think strength was the only one I pulled 3 for, because I also love the strength card. I have several make or break cards, but that would be like star, temperance, and strength. If I don't like the way they're done in a deck, I probably won't ever read with it.
Yeah. Leanne said, I had a spider who would cross my path and back again each and every time I took out the garbage. I want to be a spider mom again. Oh,
I love it. I love it because in mythology, Spider Woman in the Pueblo mythologies of the people of the Southwest, she's the creator. She wove everything into existence. So I love spiders, and not snakes, but I love spiders. I'm fascinated with them, and have been since I was a child, when one of my neighbors who was from India was telling us a story about a spider. And it's kind of like a Moses story, how this Raj had a prophecy that a prince was going to be born that was going to overthrow him. And so he went through the kingdom and was killing all the baby boys. And this young prince had been born, and they hid it away in a secret place, and like an orb weeder spider built a web over the doorway, and it was so beautiful that when the soldiers came looking through the home, they didn't disturb the spider web. And that this Raj went on, and he had a spider on the jewels and his his turban and all of that. So ever since I heard that story when I was 7 years old, I'm like, oh, spiders are cool. I still like them.
That's funny. We were talking about spiders too, because there was a time, probably, I don't know, 5 years ago, where that's all I seen was just spiders all over the place.
What did that mean to you at the time?
I don't know. I mean, I would wake up and I would even see them. And I researched it, and it said that there's like something that has to do with, what was it? Maybe being not connected or something like that. But then my friend told me, well, no, that just means that you're coming into a whole bunch of creativity, or you're in a mode of creativity, which at the time I was. So
either one fits. And, when you think about the web, that is the most beautiful creation. It's so strong. It's so intricate, and it connects everything. So, yeah, I would say it definitely is a totem of creativity.
I just do not like spiders. Just don't like them. Yeah. I mean, those eyes looking at you and all those legs.
I'm fascinated with them. My son doesn't like them, and my husband hates them. But I think they're fascinating. If I find one in the house, I'm going to take it outside. I don't kill them.
Oh, well, for the most part, I tried.
Well, I mean, if I
not
saw
to.
a black widow, I
Trying.
probably would, but I
I
don't
have
usually.
had one bite me on my toe, and I had to go to the hospital because the venom was moving up my foot. They had to put me on 2 different antibiotics in order to stop it, and it was the most painful thing I think I've ever been through ever. So
I believe you.
Spiders.
My husband's been bit a few times. I've told him, I said, that's because you have war with them and you're spraying them with, pesticides and things. When they come in the house, I just ask them to leave. He's going to kill you if you don't leave. Let me go. You've got all of these woods. Go build your web somewhere else. And I've never been bitten, but my husband gets bit 3 or 4 times a year. It's unbelievable.
On a frosty morning, I love. Becca said, spider webs on a frosty morning, I love.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Well, yeah. I'm trying. I am trying. I try not to kill them. I try to, put them on a piece of paper and then take them out. But yeah.
But I applaud you for that because now that I'm out in the country and I see snakes, venomous and non-poisonous, I used to be a major freak out. Now it's just I breathe and I back away slowly. And that's been a big fear to face. So I appreciate that. I do. You're doing good.
Oh my God, snakes. Don't even get me started with snakes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciate your spider thing, man. I really do.
All right, let's see here. What decks are you currently working with? Are those the 2 decks that you're working with right now?
I always work with multiple decks. I don't know how people go, oh, this month I'm going to work with 1 deck. How did you do that?
Yeah.
I can't. I have several I'm playing with right now. And one of them is a deck that really surprised me how much I love it. And that is this one, the Dulac. I love it. It's mythical, fairy tale-ish. And so I've been working with this one, just playing around with it. And then today I received a deck that I'm so excited about. I had ordered it back in February 24th, and it arrived today. And it's from. I am so excited for this deck, and it's from Taroko Studios, and it is the Cult of Wisdom. And this is all based on Slavic mythology. And so when I opened it up and I'm like, oh, I love the image. I'm just so excited to have this in my hands. And they have a PDF you can download, and it tells all about the deity that's associated with this and who they are and what they mean. And I was reading through this all morning, and I was struck by the parallels to the Nordic mythologies and the Celtic mythologies. And that's one reason I love mythology and folklore, because in essence, they all tie together at some point in time. We're not that divided that we think we are. Even our stories are so much alike. So I have the feeling I'm really going to dive into this one because it's the mythology of it that I want. And I'm working with, like the Shimmering Veil, which has recently come a couple weeks ago. That's beautiful. And I've been working with the Stolen Child Tarot that I really like. So that's what I'm working with right now. But the new one is the one I'm really excited about. I want to dive into the mythology behind it.
I look forward to the walkthrough for that.
When I know a little more about it, I'll do a walkthrough then. Like I've had that Stolen Child for over a year. I just did a walkthrough of it. I like to kind of really work with them before I do a walkthrough. Not a full-blown review, but kind of just, a walkthrough of it.
Yeah.
So I'll do it eventually.
So this is the question of the hour. So would you consider yourself a collector? And if so, even if you don't consider yourself a collector, we'd like to know the number of decks that you have.
Oh my gosh. When I told my husband that, he goes, you're not a collector, you're a hoarder. I said, no, I'm not that bad. I would call myself a curator of a collection. Because as we were talking before, I mean, I've been reading tarot for so long, I actually own less decks now than I've owned in the past. There was a time I think I owned 210 decks way before TarotTube. And because people would give them to me over the years and what have you. People that thought they were going to read tarot and couldn't, or they just give them to me as a gift. And so now I have 29 tarot decks in my possession. I have 3 in customs around the world, and I have 1 on pre-order and a Kickstarter that I hope will make it. So it hasn't funded yet, and it's got another week to go. So when I have all of those, that'll be 35, I guess, 35 tarot. And I have 12 Oracle, 3 Lenormand, and then 3 playing card decks that I use strictly for divination.
I'd say that is very good, very modest. Definitely not a hoarder. No.
I mean, but I told my husband, I was like, what do you mean I'm a hoarder? I said, when I moved in with you, and this is before the tarot tube days, I moved like 90 decks. I moved out here. I'm like, you don't remember? He's the one who moved it. He's like, what do you have in here? Bricks. I'm like, no, I have tarot cards. He goes, how can you read all those at one time? I go, exactly.
Oh my goodness. Was it painful getting rid of them, or was it liberating?
It's actually liberating. And I have a purgatory box because there's been too many decks I've given away that I'm like, oh, I wish I had it. But I have a purgatory box. If I'm thinking about giving away a deck, it has to live in the purgatory box for 6 months. And if I have the urge to pull it out and use it, it's great. If I never think of it again, it's gone. But so many times, too, if I'm reading someone and they're showing an aptitude for tarot or an interest in tarot, I just pull a deck I have and give it to them. Whatever, because I've had so many. And that's how a lot of, like my husband's family, I've like, if I read it, there's been times I've given them my only copy of something and repurchased it. So it doesn't count, because if they really intuitively connect with those images and they show an interest, I'll give it to them. So, but I'm also somewhat of a minimalist. And so I feel overwhelmed if I have too much stuff around me. So,
yeah. Wow. That's wonderful. That is wonderful. So, and it was not, I was expecting a much higher count.
Oh, were you?
Mm-hmm. When you said 29, I'm like, really? That's what I was thinking. Really? That's all? Because you've got a great collection.
Well, I had a depth year. I had a depth year a couple years ago. And in that time period, because when I first discovered Tarot Tube 3 years ago, and Simon, I think, yeah, he's in here. He was the first channel I ever saw, and he had a different name then. And then I started collecting decks, and I had just retired, so I had the time to actually really dive into all of these decks that I'd had for years that I'd never really read with. I had 5 or 6 that I consistently went to always for readings. And so going in and really working with them, and then of course I've accumulated some. I've gotten caught up in the hype on decks, and that's now why I'm much more conscious about curating, and I know what it is that works the best for me. And there's a few more in my collection that will probably get phased out, but I'm going to save them for a giveaway at some point down there, because I'm just not using them, although they're beautiful. Anything that's kind of fairy tale oriented or mythical oriented always gets used. Anything that's soft watercolors gets used. Anything that's kind of impressionist art gets used, and some of the others, they just don't. So I know what I will actually use. I can look at a deck and go, oh, I love it. Will I use it?
Right. Yeah. I love your purgatory box idea. That is friggin' brilliant.
It works. Yeah. And so that's what I call it, the purgatory box. And
that's perfect.
That drives my husband crazy. He goes, don't buy a deck if it's just going to go to purgatory.
Purgatory.
Because there have been some decks that have come in that I've looked through them and go, oh, purgatory box, and that's what made me way more cautious about purchasing decks, so.
Even if you're the middleman, though, look at how many people you are converting over to tarot just because you had it in your collection.
Oh my gosh. My friend Melissa calls me the fairy godmother of tarot because I've always got them in the car. If someone starts about tarot, well, I don't know tarot. Oh, hey, you want one? Because, I had so many. and I'm very grateful anytime someone gives me, and if someone gives me a deck, and especially if it's a friend and it's a gift, I will keep that deck. So it doesn't matter if I read with it or not, I will hold on to it, so
Yeah.
a lot of them will get regifted, if it's nowadays, because there's just too many.
So would you say, since you started reading tarot, which you said was roughly like 40 years ago, has your reading style changed a whole lot?
Yes. And I started out just intuitively reading, because the first professional reading I had, not the hippies next door, but the first real tarot reader I was 15. And we got to talking about mythology and myth. And I said, I can see the archetypes in the, because I was very much into, Jung and Joseph Campbell. And I said, I can see this in the cards. And so she gave me a deck, and it was the Aquarian Tarot. I didn't get to keep it very long because my mother, she ended up burning it. But I would play with the cards next door. And my friend's mother taught me how to read the playing cards. So that's how I read Marseille now that I'm into Marseille. I read it the way I learned to read playing cards, just because, I'm not going to go in there and I'll get to that. I started out reading intuitively, and that worked great for me for years. And of course, I would sit with the book in my lap going, okay, I'd read it first intuitively, and I'd practice on all my friends. Oh, let me practice on you. And of course, they loved it. We're teenagers. Everybody'd come over, right? So then I would read out of the book, and a lot of times I found that the first intuitive hit was more accurate than the book. So then I read that way for years and years and years. And then about 5 years ago, I decided to go really deep into the study of tarot. And honestly, I couldn't read cards for about 3 years because of it. It totally, all of that other stuff was in my head, and I stopped seeing it intuitively. So I put all the books away, went back to reading intuitively. Now I have that knowledge behind me, so it made a difference. And then I started reading Marseille this year to just do something different. And you have to rely, I think, more on intuition when it's the Marseille, because you want to see how the pictures tie together. What story does it make? How's it mind mapping the creative synapses in your brain? What are you seeing out of it? So it's just my personal experience, maybe, different for other people. So that was my journey with the tarot. And that's one reason I love the Shimmering Veil. That deck is just so intuitive, and so is Polarco's. And because they lend themselves to that intuitive hit, I feel like. And because, I'm an artist, I kind of live in that murky realm anyway. So, and, Pisces, so.
We have a couple people in here saying that, they need to make a purgatory box. I definitely need to make a purgatory box. I think that's a great idea.
I see Simon's question about the underpinning of RWS when reading Marseille. It more goes back to when I learned to read on playing cards, when I'm reading Marseille. But honestly, the way that I read is a combination of playing cards, Marseille, Thoth, and Rider-Waite. Because I've read all of these over the years. When I pick up a deck, I don't think, I have to read this in Marseille, or I have to read this in Thoth. I just pick it up and I read what the images are telling me. And I think that was the point I wanted to make about going back to the intuitive. What is this image telling me? Okay, well, for example, we'll just pull this one. When I would pull this card, right, this is the Cinderella and the fairy godmother.
Let me make you big just for a second, sweetie. How do I do that?
See it? So I would say, what is this image telling me in relation to the other cards? Not necessarily, what does the One of Wands mean, right? I would look at this like, when I was a little girl and people would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'd always say, I want to be the fairy godmother. So, because, I lived in a fairy tale world. So I look at this and I think of this as not only the story about Cinderella having her wishes come true, but the ability to make someone else's dreams and wishes come true. That's what this art tells me. That's not what the Ace of Wands tells me. It's what this art tells me. And so now I read what the art tells me. And if it's a Marseille, I look at what are the colors? What are the shapes in those colors? How are they flowing? What is the story it's telling me? And so it's not necessarily just one system, because I've been reading so long, it's a conglomeration of stuff. I like to think of it as multiple tools in one toolbox.
Yeah, whatever is fitting for that particular reading.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. So, do you do any daily rituals?
Yes, I do. Every morning when I get up and I let my dogs out, first thing I do is I go stand barefoot in the grass, rain or shine, and at least 10 minutes. Get the sun, the vitamin D, ground the energy down. And I found, and this was the thing I wasn't expecting, I didn't need coffee to wake up and feel great. I mean, it used to be after I came out here, because I wasn't on a regular schedule like I was when I was working full time, that it was just really hard for me to get going, because I'm a night owl. I love to paint in the middle of the night. I never really go to bed before 3 a.m. as a lot of our friends in here from the UK and Australia all know. I'm online at weird times talking to them. And so I would need coffee the next morning to get up and get moving. But I found by just going out and staying on the earth and grounding in the sun, I really don't need it. It just takes a glass of water to get me going in the morning now. And if I skip a day, I can tell. I've been dealing with some thyroid issues and really working with the functional medicine doctor. And, you know, he's like, you've got to increase your time in the sun in the morning for the vitamin D. And that's what made me do it more. I'm like, oh, okay. Just got there, and instead of just staying up there for a couple minutes barefoot, sometimes I'll sit in the chair and with my feet in the ground. It makes a huge difference. I feel energized and alive and connected to the earth when I do that. So that's my morning ritual. And then I come in and I sit down with something to drink, and I have a gratitude journal. I write in it every morning, and I will do candle work or prayer work for anyone that I've spoken to that may have a sick loved one or whatever. And that's how I start my day every single day.
That is wonderful.
Don't do the candles when we're traveling, but the rest of it I do. The journal and the going outside barefoot. I was raised by hippies, remember?
I love that.
They always used to say shoes will make you sick. I mean, and that's what my friend Julie, the Apache, her family used to say, shoes will make you sick. They said you can't connect with the mother. So I mean, a lot of that goes back to childhood stuff. Yeah. And I think there's a whole earthing movement now, and I'm like, well, it makes sense to me. I mean, you know, but.
So Becca had said my mom would have done the same. I think she was talking about burning your,
the
decks.
She did.
Jonathan
and then,
said,
but here's the weird part. She asked me to read them first. I read her first, and it freaked her out because I saw something in there that I wasn't even supposed to know about. And then she took the cards and went and threw them in the burn pile. Lit them on fire.
Oh my goodness.
I was mortified. You know, now in hindsight, I find it really funny because, you know, I can remember her coming to visit. She lived in Pensacola, and she'd come up to Dallas to visit me, and she'd come into my home, and, you know, there's so witchy stuff here, tarot cards everywhere. She'd be like, oh, you're still into all that? I'm like, yeah, I am. She, well, I'm going to pray for you. I go, okay, thank you, Mom.
I'm going to pray for you. Yeah. That's funny. So Jonathan also said, I always tell my beginning tarot students that they need to learn it all so that they can forget it all when doing readings. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true.
Really? Yeah. I love earthing, walking barefoot on the earth. Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I do it in the pine forest all the time around here because there's a carpet of soft pine needles on the ground. And that's another ritual I have. I make it a point to get into the pine forest minimum once a week. And we have a trail out there I like to call Cathedral Trail because of the way it's growing up. Looks like the rafters in that beautiful chapel up in Arkansas, Thorn Crown, that's got the glass ceiling. And so I like to go out there and just spend some time. It's a weekly ritual that I do. I don't feel right if I miss it. I go out there to commune with the gods, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Sandra said, when I got my first tarot deck when I was 14, I didn't know how to read, but I just used to make stories from the cards. That
Exactly.
works. Yep.
Exactly. That is the perfect thing right there. I mean, and that's the whole thing with doing like a Marseille reading. It's the story. What does the story tell you? I love that.
Leanne says, I go to a jewelry class at 10 a.m. UK time every morning, which is 3 a.m. for her. My goodness, you crazy ladies.
Okay, Simon, I see your comment here, being diabetic and being barefooted. My husband is a diabetic, and he does walk outside barefoot sometimes to be really careful. But strangely, he said he actually makes him feel better. But you do have to be careful that you don't cut your feet because you don't want ulcers and things like that. So, oh, Simon, I feel for you. Can you be barefoot in the sand?
Yeah.
And Naomi too. Oh, is Lennon in here? Hi, Lennon.
Yeah, hi, Lennon.
And hi, Naomi. Hello to everyone I haven't said hello to. I'm new to this multitasking thing here.
I know it. It's not easy. So what about your dreams? Do you remember your dreams?
Yes, I have always remembered my dreams. And sometimes I have those dreams that you just know, you feel like you're living in some other reality, right? And you wake up and you feel disoriented, and I have those. And then I have had the prophetic dreams, and I keep a dream diary. And when my son was little, he still to this day has prophetic dreams, and I would have him write things down. He could remember past life stuff and everything in his dreams when he was little. And so yes, but that was one thing, my mother very much believed in the dreams being, messages from the spirit realm or God and talking to you. And so I was raised to really pay attention to that, and so I do.
Right on.
And
see, I feel the same way.
And I've made some mugwort salve, because I grow a lot of herbs. And that's trippy. I'll put it on my third eye before I go to bed and set the intention.
Really?
Yes, and I'll set the intention that I want to have an experience that will enrich me spiritually or enrich my consciousness. And I'll put the salve on my third eye, and I'll put some on my heart, and that leads to some trippy dreams, I'll tell you.
All right. So, do you have a video on how to make this salve?
No, but maybe I should consider doing that.
Please do. Yes, please do. I'm interested.
Yeah,
I've got quite a bit of mugwort, so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I work with a lot of stuff like that I do around here, and I really don't think about it because it's just been part of my life for so long. Like when you said you thought about a video, no, yeah. I haven't. But it'll be some trippy dreams if you do that. And
I'm telling you, you know what? Even amethyst is like that. The stone amethyst, because I did not. Well, pretty much all of my witchy stuff was down here. My bedroom is upstairs. And so I have this big, like geode of amethyst. It's really tall. My husband bought it for me.
Oh, wow.
And when he first bought it for me, I had it in the bedroom. We even have like a light that comes down to showcase it because it's so gorgeous, right? And I took it down here and wanted it in my room, but I have not hardly been dreaming. So I took it back upstairs like 3-4 days ago, and I've dreamt every single night that I remember since I put it back up in the bedroom.
Wow. That's interesting. Like, this is the guest bedroom that I have taken over as my office. My desk I'm sitting at used to be out in we live in a log cabin, and it's an open, great concept room. And it's not a great big home. And I used to have my desk in the living room, but with the cards and all the stuff out all the time, and people are in and out on the ranch all the time, it's a roll top desk, I got to close it up, and I've decided I'm going to make room in one of the spare bedrooms. And I have brought in a ton of crystals in here, and there's amethyst in this room. There's amethyst in our master bedroom, and then the guests. I'll have to ask people that come over and they're staying in these rooms. I tend not to use this room for guests unless we have a full house, and then we've got people in the studio, and we have an apartment down in the barn, and because like when we do family gatherings, people are up here for days. But I tried it, and I only put the cool cousins in this room. The ones that know my world. I get to stay back here because my cards, everything are back here, right?
That's funny. The cool cousins.
The cool cousins, yeah.
Jonathan said, I used to pick fresh mugwort to put in my pillowcase, which I could still do that, but no mugwort in Hawaii. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter-in-law did that. She picked some out of because I'm growing some. And she picked some and put it under her pillow when she was here. Next morning, she goes, I didn't like that. She said, I had weird dreams all night long. I said, well, what intention did you set? She goes, oh, I didn't set an intention. I go, don't do that with mugwort. You probably should set an intention because otherwise it might take you to territory you don't want to go.
Yeah, exactly. Becca says, Nancy, we need a series. So.
Oh, okay, Becca.
You've been told, lady.
Okay. I'm like, I have just so many weird interests that I'm like, I don't know,
Hey, they're not weird to us. We are your peeps.
That's true.
Okay?
This is my tribe. Peeps. And this is why, all right, this is why I'm on YouTube. I missed having a tribe out here in the country.
So what is your favorite holiday or Sabbath?
Samhain. I love Samhain, and I love Yule, and I love Halloween. But I'm not crazy about Christmas. I know that makes no sense whatsoever. But no, I love Samhain, and I love Yule, and but I also love the cool and the darker half of the year. Those are my favorite. And Samhain to me is very sacred and connecting with the ancestors and loved ones who've crossed over. But I love also the Halloween aspect of it. And I go out full witchy all over the entire house and don't even bother to hide it from Dan's relatives. I love it. I feel like you can truly be out. And, one of the cousins asked one day, so are you a witch or what? I go, oh, yeah. She goes, oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, I told you.
Yeah.
So, whatever. Believe me or not, I don't care.
Yeah, Simon said, what's weird anyways, right?
There you go. Weird is destiny. It's fate, because the weird sisters, the Norns, the fates. So I think we're all destined to be like this. At least I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you work with crystals? Silly question. That was the next question. What are your favorites?
Yes. And I am actually a certified crystal healer, and among other things. And my husband and I recently went to Arkansas, and I went digging. Whoops, I'm sorry. I caught the cord. And I dug up this beauty. Isn't that gorgeous?
Did you already show that on your channel? Did you already show that on your channel?
No, we just got back from Arkansas a few days ago.
Oh.
But I have shown crystals. I mean, we're just a few hours from Arkansas, and Arkansas has some of the best quartz crystal in the entire world. And it's you have Mount Ida, you have Jesseville, you have all these places between like Hot Springs and Eureka Springs where all these crystals are, and it's amazing. And I think Arkansas is probably one of the most beautiful states, and I think people are just not aware of it. The western part of the state anyway, with the Ozark Mountains, and it's heavily treed and lakes and rivers everywhere and crystals all under the earth. It's just one of my favorite places to go. And so I love clear quartz. I'm sorry?
Can you show us that one more time?
And I love moonstones. Moonstone's actually my favorite. And amber. Isn't this cool?
Oh, wow. And you guys just dug that up.
Yeah. I have several around here. Goodness. I have probably 5 or 6 on my desk, if I can reach them without knocking everything over, that I've dug up in Arkansas.
Oh, my goodness.
That's another one. I mean, they're all over the place. My husband says every time he goes to do something in the house, he finds crystals stuck in places he didn't know was possible. Because I have the house gridded, of course. This is another one I dug up. I did this one last year.
Oh,
I dug up. Wait a minute. How am I going to get this to show? There you go. I mean, these are beautiful, right?
beautiful.
Yeah. So that's one of my
Yes.
favorite things to do.
Oh my goodness gracious, yes. Love that.
Love them. I love them. And I'm real careful about buying them. You know, I want them to be ethically sourced when I purchase them anymore. But I enjoy going and digging them out of the ground myself. You know, so yes, to answer your question, I'm
I need
rambling.
to
I'm
be
sorry.
visiting Arkansas. Just saying. Need to stay for a couple weeks.
It's amazing. Look it up online. I wouldn't advise going in July. It was so hot. And even though we were in we have a motorhome, and we were in the motorhome, and staying on the lake and could go out, it was still just really hot. It's not something I'd recommend doing until it gets cooler. And some of the mines are open all year, and some are only open through the end of October. But anyone that's in the U.S. that ever has the opportunity to go crystal mining in Arkansas, it's an amazing experience.
I mean, like, how deep down in the mines do you have to go? Because that's something.
It depends on how you want to do it. There's ways to go where it's primitive digging, and you can go kind of down in the pits, and then there's some where they will actually have excavated and had machinery kind of dump it, and you're sifting through it and digging through it. And I've done it both ways. So
Now, how did you get those big ones? Did you go down into the mines?
no, I didn't go into the mines with that one because I was with my husband, and he doesn't do that. He's older than me, and he has some health limitations, so he can't go with me to do it. But when I go with my son and daughter-in-law this fall, we'll be going down doing the more primitive. They call it primitive excavation, and I mean they don't have you going someplace where you could get hurt. It's still fairly somewhat already excavated, and you can go online and research it. And it's got all the different ways that you can do that.
And do you have to pay for that? I mean, is it just to go in there, or do you have to pay for however much?
It's like if you go primitive digging, it's $10 a day to go dig. If you go to the ones where they've excavated, it's $25 a day to go dig. And when you think, like I know that, for example, a crystal like this in Dallas is going to go for $300 or $400. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
And for the price of digging, go get it.
I need to go do some digging. Yes, that's fabulous. So, do you have any special skills or hobbies that you would like to tell us about?
Oh gosh, I thought about this question, and when you're thinking about the things that you do, you don't really think of them as special skills. I'm certified in at least 7 different healing modalities, and that's because of a martial arts accident I had some years back. They said I was going to be paralyzed, and I wanted to do everything I could not to be. I shattered my knee in 7 pieces and broke my leg and my ankle and my foot. So, and it was actually my orthopedic surgeon said, I want you to get into some energy healing. He said, because he was an orthopedic surgeon for the Texas Rangers baseball team. And he said, I don't know why it works. I just know that it does. He said, too many of my players that have had injuries, they got their careers on the line. And what I can do for them isn't helping. I recommend that they go get something else. So he recommended magnet therapy, crystal therapy, energy healing, and yoga. And I started doing all of that. And I'm certified in sound healing and quantum touch and theta. And I can't even remember them all because I don't use them professionally. I used them to heal my own body. And it's kind of like we were talking about with the tools in the toolbox. I use them, whatever I need on the pets. I don't even think about it as a system. Like if I see that the garden is needing some, I'll do some, Reiki in the garden to help the plants. Or, maybe going to learn polarity therapy, all these things. So there's that. And I do pottery and sculpture, and I paint. And learning to fly fish. And I'm working on my own tarot deck, and I'm creating my own oracle deck. And So that's about it.
You are an amazing lady.
And so, and I've been learning because my son is a graphic artist. So like I had done some test prints of my art make playing cards, and to see how the art would scan, how does it need to be photographed? And my son is like, I've had to start over with my deck in order to get it, because I want it borderless. The art has to be specified dimensions as you create it to be borderless and to have the bleed area. And that's why, I know some people don't like borders, but that's why they're there. It has to do with printing and the way that it prints and how it prints out. So I did some test prints to see how it would go, because that's a project I'd put on hold for about 8 months, 9. And when I got my test prints in, I'm like, it really excited me. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll actually finish this now, because I'm like, I'm holding my own art in my hands, So we'll see.
Now, have you revealed any of that information on your channel yet?
No, I can show you a few. I'll show you a few.
Please.
Okay. Okay. This is the Corn Maiden.
Oh, wow.
And this is just a print of my favorite painting I've ever done. I don't know if you can see. You can't probably see it. I painted Stevie Ray Vaughan, and this is just a print of that one. And he's going to be in there somehow or another. And these are just test prints because I need to adjust the way they're
wow,
the way that they
incredible.
So that's just a few. There's a bunch of stuff over here. So these are a few because now I know how I need to tweak the colors, and that's one of the reasons I haven't shown them. And my deck is only probably, and I started working on that deck probably 10 years ago, and it's only 50% complete. And it's interesting because my art style has changed throughout it. So now I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I want this harmonious. I got to go back and tweak this somehow. So that's one of those projects that may or may not ever get done, but it's out there.
I know some people like the harmonious, and for some things I do, but I like having different styles of art in one deck as well. I think it makes for a very interesting reading.
The Philarcos Tarot is one of my favorite decks, and it's that way. I mean, you have this deck is incredible. For anyone who does not have this, I'm probably her biggest fan and advocate for this deck out there. See how this tower card to me is the most perfect tower ever. So you have that, then you have your aces are in black and white. Then your quartz are, I'm sorry about the glare, that ring light. Then the quartz are in color, and then some of them are like sketches. I'm sorry, I was getting a phone call. I had to pause it. So and then some of them are like sketches. And when I first thought about this deck, I'm like, I don't know, that might put me off. I love it, actually. I love the way that it reads. So thank you for pointing that out. I hadn't thought about that because my deck is going to be a multitude of styles then, like this one, because it's evolving over time as I'm evolving.
Exactly. I love that. I had just gotten like 2 weeks ago the 78 Elemental, which was like 81 different cards.
I know that's on my wish list.
I love it.
That's on my wish list.
Yeah.
I have a wish list, and so that's on there. So we'll see. I may end up biting the bullet on that one. I've been basically just adding Marseille this year, but I am looking at that deck. How are you liking reading with it?
I haven't read too much with it, to be honest with you. I've done a couple, and that's what I like about it is that it's so different. It can make you really think because it's not such a cohesive, thing.
Yes.
So even for like the kind of, I really love my favorite kind of reading is like a past life, and it's the images that really, really sparks something. It makes me think of like different movies that I've seen or stories that I've heard. That's what just like inspires. So when it's so, such a variety, it just sparks so much inside of you. It's amazing.
Yeah, I could see how that would do that. That may have to move up a little higher on my wish list.
Yeah.
I do have some. It's not that I'm anti-collecting now. I'm just more mindful, and I sit on something. Generally now, I try to sit on something for about a month or two before I purchase it. Except Simon made me do the Shimmering Veil. He was 3 cards in on that review, and I'm like, order.
Yep.
And I love it. I have no regrets. That was a great deck.
That's funny. I want to get the 78 mythological. I want to get all the 78 ones. I do. They're on my wish list just because I like that variety.
I have been looking at them, and I can't remember which ones it is now, but I have them all saved online. And there's some I like. There's one I like better than the other one, and I can't remember which is which right now.
Yeah. Very cool. So, do you currently have a favorite book or artist?
My favorite artist of all time is John William Waterhouse. I love him, his mythical art. And I think currently my current favorite artist would probably be Julia Jeffrey, the artist behind the Tarot of the Hidden Realm. I love her work. I have several of her prints. And I also love Carmen Sorrenti's art, who has done the Floricos Tarot. So I'd say contemporary would be them, and back in time would be, of course, Van Gogh and Waterhouse. And favorite book, no way. I love to read. One of my favorite writers, though, is Morgan Llewellyn, because she writes she writes fiction that's based on the mythical tales of Ireland, out of the various sagas out of Ireland and the folklore that's been handed down. And she writes it in such a way that I can remember it, because when I was little trying to read all these stories and you had all these Gaelic names, I couldn't remember. And even though I could learn from my dad's family how to pronounce some of them, I just couldn't remember it. And she wrote it in such a way that I could remember it. And I really enjoy her. So no, no current favorite book.
I can definitely understand that. I think most people say it's like 3 or 4 or 10 or 20.
Yeah. I just can't do it.
So do you have a current TV series that you are enjoying? Which I know you said you don't have a TV, so.
I haven't owned a television in over 30 years.
So you don't watch anything online?
Once in a while, I watched Vikings online, and that was the, and I think that's one of your questions about the series. I watched the Viking series online because, it's Vikings, and that's an area of my interest. But generally, no, I don't watch television. I mean, I watch YouTube, and I read, and I paint, and I have a lot of work. I'm in the country. There's a lot of things that take up my time. And I found for me a long time ago that it was too easy when I was living up in Rhode Island, and my former husband was off with the Navy over in the Gulf during the first Gulf War, that it would be too easy to sit down in front of the TV and not go out and live. And that's when I decided I don't need a television. And I haven't lived with one since then.
That's true. I can't imagine. We've got TVs in every friggin' of our house. Yeah. But most of the time during the day, they're never on, ever.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think, like when I first met my husband, he was a news junkie, and he seemed so stressed out all the time. And he said, I don't understand why you're not stressed, because I was working full time, and I was showing a lot of art back in those days, burning the candle at two ends. And I said, well, I don't watch TV. I don't partake of the news and all of this stuff. And so I think I knew him for about a year when he decided, he turned off the TV after knowing about 6 months. Then after about a year, he just got rid of it. And he said sometimes he misses it, but he'll get online and watch stuff. But he said for the most part, he doesn't miss it. And now he doesn't have nightmares, and he can sleep, and he's not tense. And I'm like, makes a huge, huge difference.
Right.
And, I mean, I know it's not for everyone, but that works best for me, just because I know myself,
Jonathan said, I'm going to end up ordering $400 worth of decks by the time I can buy again. And most of them will be Simon made
Simon made me do it. Oh, come on, y'all quit picking on Simon.
Poor
It's
Simon.
because we want to stand in solidarity with Simon. We don't want Simon's deck collection to get lonely.
Right. Yes. So do you have a favorite witch movie that you have seen?
I loved Mist of Avalon, if that would count. I loved it. Have you seen it?
I do think I have seen it, but it's been a long time.
That would be it. I actually have it.
And then I looked, and I think I have, but it's been a long time ago.
I have the DVD of that, and so it would be the Mist of Avalon. But you know, it's Celtic mythical fairy tale. It's right up my alley there.
Yeah. My one like that was Excalibur. I remember watching that when I was a kid.
Loved it. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen if it's Arthurian, I've seen it or read it, I'm sure, you know?
Yeah. So, do you prefer coffee or tea, or do you not drink either of those?
Both. I do a lot of tea. If I do, actually, I do coffee in the morning, but it's a reishi mushroom coffee.
Oh.
And I love it. And reishi mushrooms are so healthy for you. And so I'll do that. And then, because I was really getting off regular coffee. And so when I do have coffee, it's usually the reishi mushroom coffee. And then I do all kinds of, what we call teas. Maybe not what the Brits call it, but, all the herbal teas and all of those things I love.
Very nice. Simon, you need to start selling a Simon Maybe Do a Tarot bag. Yeah, there you go. The Witches of Eastwick was a fun movie to me. I love it.
Yeah, it was. I liked it. I thought that was a great movie, and I enjoyed it.
Definitely.
I was looking at the
comments. So, is there a time in history other than now that you feel drawn to?
Oh, very much so. Anything that's in the ancient Celtic world. I would love to have been around, particularly in mythology when the Milesians attacked Ireland and they overthrew the Tuatha Dé Danann, who went into the hills and became the fairy people. I would love to just see who were they really, because there's some theories that the Tuatha Dé Danann were the Vanir of the Nordic mythology. They had the war with the Aesir, and that the Milesians may be the Aesir, and I would like to know that. I wish I knew that. But that whole time period, go back in the mist of time, and I think that's probably why the Llewellyn deck is my most used deck. It just immediately takes me in this time period that I love so much. So somewhere back in there would be my favorite time period.
Very cool. I did a video on like the fairies. Or the she, and some of them they talked about in some of the old ancient writings or folklore or whatever, that the Tuatha, and I know I say it wrong, Tuatha Dé Danann, when they came over, they arrived on like flying ships, and then they ended up changing it to like sailing ships, but flying ships, what's that mean? And in a mist.
And I mean so that's why I find one of the theories that the Vanir, who would be like Freya and Freyr, or Froya and Fror, as they can be called, and they married into the Aesir, Odin's crowd, right? After the war. There's a story, that Freyr, he has the boat that folds up into his pocket, and it can fly through the air.
Interesting.
And there's so many of these parallels, and that's why I'm so excited to go back to that deck on the Slavic mythology. I can't wait to dive in. I probably actually want to pick up another deck while I'm diving in on that one, because I want to know. And it's not just about the tarot, it's the story. So I'm fascinated by how all of these stories tie together. And my father's family, they were Irish, and to where my great-grandparents actually came from Ireland. And the stories they would tell about the fairy people are not how the fae and fairies are portrayed in American culture, you didn't mess with them. And my grandmother, she was Scottish, and the other folk, or the good folk, you didn't go out seeking them or to interact with them. The stories were totally different. So I found that fascinating. They could help you, they could harm you, and that's what took me forever to really work with that Tarot of the She deck, because being so versed in the actual folklore from that versus the American way of thinking of the She. But that deck is really special, and I do feel like the She are trying to connect with us. I feel like both of our worlds depend on it, because I really do think that they're an interdimensional race of people, and it's a subject that fascinates me. I mean, I could talk for hours on.
We're going to have to talk one of these days. The book that I read, the She.
I ordered it after I saw you talking about it. I did. It's not here yet. Yeah.
Yes. All these accounts in here are just friggin' amazing. I mean, seriously. But I just finished reading one about the arrival or the return of the Anunnaki, and how the Anunnaki had their first battle before they supposedly, which I do believe, made humanity. They had a fight with the Ajiji. And then the Gigi didn't show up anywhere, but the Anunnaki were,
because they were supposed to be on Mars. Yeah.
Right. So I wonder if the Ajiji are actually the She.
Well, the thing is you have to look at it this way. All of these different cultures have these mythologies. And if you think about how we're here on Earth today, and you have different ethnicities of people, they may not necessarily be the same. It could just be a different ethnicity of dimensional being.
Right. Well, say about the Ajiji, that the Ajiji could have been like
it's possible
term, or could have been the offspring of the Anunnaki. But at the same time, they say that the She could have been like an umbrella term for many different beings.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing that's so fascinating, to dig deep into that, especially if you read like, what's it called? Is it the Cirrus? Oh, I can't remember the name of that book. But any of those, Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods, any of those books, the Cygnus Mystery, the Cirrus. I can't think of the name of it. I can see the cover of that book. Can't think of the name of it. But that fascinates me. And see, I love studying the folklore and the mythology from around the world and putting it together, which is going to pull me into an answer for one of your questions coming up.
Oh, okay.
The next question. Who could you talk to in any time period?
Yes.
Joseph Campbell, without a doubt. I would love to sit down because, I mean, it's the whole hero's journey, right? And he was like the first person in modern history to really put the comparative mythologies together in the world and look at the common threads. And he left us a beautiful legacy of things written down, right? Because he was a professor and he wrote everything down. But I would just love to sit and talk to him and go, I have this theory about, the Tuatha and the Vanir, and have you read anything on? I just wish I could just sit and talk to him. Yeah. And I read everything of his when I was growing up. And when my son was about 5, I used to host a discussion group out of my home with people that we would come in. We'd talk about his books and the myths. And it'd be Joseph Campbell, without a doubt.
You are an amazing lady. You and I could talk. I'm just telling you.
I would love to. I'd love to. It's been so nice talking to you today and getting to know you. And
right on.
I look forward to that. So are you on Glide? We just need to connect. We'll talk later.
Yeah. So if you could go to any event in history, what would it be and why?
If I could go to any event in history, I would go back in time before the library at Alexandria burned. And I would try to take, I'm sorry, Dan, take the dog, please.
Your dog?
Yeah, the dog. My husband just came in. Hang on a minute.
Are you turn?
No, I'm not.
Sorry.
Okay. He let the dogs in.
Yeah.
I would go back to the Alexandria before the library burned, and to see what was in there. To me, that's one of the greatest tragedies in human history is the loss of all that knowledge. Supposed to have had knowledge from, Atlantis and Lemuria, and what scrolls I could have hidden or stolen, or could I have told them, hey, look, they're going to burn your library. That would be it. I've always thought I would love to have gone there. That would be it.
Absolutely. You know what? I think that they did save a lot of that, though.
Probably.
If I'm being honest, I really do feel like they did save it.
Probably in the vaults of the Vatican.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
This conspiracy theory mind of mine, right? But yeah.
Yeah,
John
my husband
is the person that did, just for everybody really quick, he is the person that did the foreword in the book for the Terror of the Sheet.
Yeah.
So.
And Leanne has put the link there in the chat. I just happened to look over and see it. I ordered this just a few days ago, but I'm in the country. Everything takes longer, Even with Prime, it takes 10 days out here, so there's no point in even having it.
Yeah, I hear you. It's an easy read, but it's really good. And I love that it's not based on folklore or anything like that.
It's his own experience.
His personal experiences. Exactly.
And that's...
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
And it all started at a mound in Ireland called Dorknasheen, I believe. That's where the whole thing started. And that is not far from one of my friends who was in here earlier, from where she lives. So once everything opens up again, she says, I'm definitely going and checking it out. It's very cool.
And I would love to go back to Ireland. And it was interesting. We were there. We stayed in a lot of B&Bs, and we hopped all over the island. We drove like 1,200 miles around Ireland. And a lot of the older people we met would tell us stories and tell us where to stay away from, where the fairy mounds were. And, because we're Americans, they're like, we know y'all want to go looking, but, we recommend that you don't. But boy, it's tempting. I would love to do that. But, and I like when you were doing your review of that book and you were talking about his account with that. I mean, I had the opportunity. I lived among the Hopi on Second Mesa for about 6 months. And that was an interesting experience because you will see celestial phenomenon type stuff all the time. And they definitely believe in the star people and how they have a close, and I've seen some weird things, and I don't really want to go into that in this chat. And talking to people who've had experiences and all of that. So that's what made me get that book. I think you did a great review on it, and I look forward to receiving it.
Thank you. Yeah, I want everyone to read it. And that's what they say, that their messages, that the messages that they relay, we need to know, because it could be very crucial to both of us.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're at a critical point in history that it is important.
Yes. So do you have a website? Or
not anymore.
Do you do readings for people?
I do readings for people all the time, but I don't do them professionally now, but there have been times when I lived in Dallas that I would do the fairs and go do readings and things. And I used to have my own website, but it was art related when I was showing all the time. And I got really burned out on the art shows. When I was showing all the time, I had to have a website. And now I don't have one. And I do everything kind of low technology now. It's actually been great. I mean, I only got on Facebook right after I started making content on my channel, because I had to have all that for work before I was in marketing, and I was actually in business development and public relations. So I had to be so public all the time. That was my job. I was a paid social butterfly, basically. That when I moved out to the country for about 5 years, I didn't want anything to do with anybody. I didn't want to be all over social media and all that, because it was such a drain to have to do that professionally that I didn't want to do it privately too. So now I just have, Facebook and YouTube. And if I start showing again, I'll have to get my website up again.
Okay. So when did you say that you started making content? Was it in February?
February. It was a VR to Simon.
And you've been on YouTube for a few years?
Yeah, I was stalking for about 3 years ago. I was stalking everybody, and then uh, 2 years ago I started commenting. Then last year I finally started coming in chat because, unfortunately, one of the side effects of deciding to unplug completely from the world after I left corporate America, and there were a lot of reasons for that. I mean, my mother had died, and her twin sister had died. I lost my father, stepmother. I mean, I lost like 6 family members in a 5-year period. So when I came out here, I just wanted to unplug for everything and just take that time to recoup and heal. And the hard thing about that was I was always a really outgoing person. It made me really withdrawn. It made me become very shy. So in one sense, it was very good in healing, but in the other sense, it was detrimental in that it took me forever to just comment in a live chat. And I remember the first time doing it, I was terrified. And, then of course, the chat's going so fast and you really can't see everything that's going on. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. They didn't see me.
Oh,
Didn't see my comment, you know. And then I just decided one day, all these beautiful people that I've met through here and I've interacted with some offline. And I thought, well, I want to get online so they can see me the way that I see them and kind of deepen those connections. And so I just decided to bite the bullet with a thing Simon had put out, and I did the VR about getting to know your tarot tribe, and I was so scared when I did that video. Oh my gosh. So anybody out there that's scared to make content, once you do it, it gets a lot easier.
Oh yeah. Just go
It
for
gets so much easier. Just have to do it that first time.
Yeah.
And it's helped me come back out. It's helped me come out of my shell. And I feel like me again, interacting with people. Because out here in the country, I don't talk to anybody that has any of these interests. And when I was in Dallas, I was surrounded by people that had these interests. And now I'm so far out here, and the few people I do know in town, most of them know my beliefs, and that has caused some people to shy away from me, but that's okay. I'm going to live my truth. And
right on. We got you. So what is the direction that you envision for your channel going forward?
I would like to explore more the correlation between the tarot and folklore and mythology. And I think some of these decks that I have that I work with, I'd like to, instead of just showing them on the cards, I'd like to go more into, this is some stories that are the backstory to this deck. I think I'd like to do a little more of that. And I recently started reading fairy tales on my channel because a friend of mine's granddaughter that she's raising, because her parents have deceased, her name is Emma, and I used to read stories to her all the time. And I haven't been able to see her because of COVID. So I started recording videos for her to see, and I'm having a blast with that. So I'm going to keep that up on my channel, and it's just a little side thing. And I really don't know. But I mean, from what we're talking about today, maybe I'll do some of the salves and things. I'm not really sure.
Yes.
I'll think about it.
Okay.
If y'all want to put any input in here, and if you would like to see what kind of content you'd like to see, let me know. I'll be happy to
all of the
consider
above. Excuse me. So what do you wish to gain from your channel?
Connection with people. Right. And I've met so many beautiful people. I mean, people here in the States and people in Europe and down in Australia, they've met all these beautiful people that I never would have had an opportunity to have known and interacted with. And that's what I love about YouTube. And I think it's been especially important during lockdown, that connection, and building that tribe, and for myself, and being a part of that, and seeing how humanity can come together, even in divisive times. There are some things that still unite us, even though forces try to tear us apart. So it's about connection for me. That's what it's about. It's about connection.
Right on. Simon said, the whole reason that I started that tag was for us to find out more about each other. So pleased that you did, Nancy. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Simon. I'm glad you did it. That made me just bite the bullet and go, okay. Because when I had to recreate my channel in December, I thought, well, maybe I'll do content. And, my daughter-in-law was like, I don't understand why you're not on YouTube. She's like, you've been reading tarot a long time. You have a lot of, why aren't you on YouTube? I'm like, oh, I could never do that.
Exactly.
And then I hid it from my husband for a while because I thought, oh, remember he told me to be discreet with some of his family members. Oh my gosh, he binged watched every video I had made. And sometimes I'll go in the room back in there and he'll be going, be quiet, I'm watching my favorite YouTuber. And I go, oh, are you stalking me again?
Oh, I love
He's like, how else can I keep up with how many decks you have? He's a good sport about it. And he supports my deck habit. So,
my favorite YouTuber. I wished I would run into my husband doing that. No, I have to beg him. Are you going to please watch mine? He's like, man, whatever. So.
Oh, he's knocking on the door. He hears me talking about him. He's probably watching me on the video in the other room. Oh my gosh.
That's cute. So, this is normally the part where I open it up for anyone else to ask any questions. Do you have time for that?
Oh, I do. You do.
Okay, yeah. So, ask
okay, I'm going to kind of look over at the chat here.
All right. Jonathan says, I'm going to have to track down the storytime videos. I just want to hear you talk more about any and everything, Jen says.
Oh my gosh.
I would love to see you go digging in Arkansas. Yes.
Do I almost did video when I was there. And, I take a lot of video, on the property and stuff. And then we're actually leaving in the morning and we're going on, I'm going to go fly fishing and go fishing. And my husband's like, you should really do some video of that. People don't want to see that. But, I forgot, I think I was in Robin's chat yesterday where he was talking about skeet shooting. I'm like, yeah, I've done that, but, I'm a Texan, right? Okay. So I have all these other interests that are not necessarily tarot related. I may put them on the channel at some point because, my son had said was, Mom, I like the fact that you're leaving a legacy that I can go back and watch later if YouTube doesn't, delete it. So he goes, I want to see those things and I want to show those to my children someday. And I'm like, I had never really thought about YouTube in that term until he said that to me one day. And because my brother had a YouTube channel, the one that passed away when it first started, he was an amateur filmmaker, and YouTube has deleted his account, and that really was hard on my family. We showed one of his films at his memorial service that he had made, and at that time I wasn't computer literate, and now I've learned how to do these things. I wish I had downloaded them all to my computer at that time because we no longer have them. So, but my son had said, if YouTube doesn't, go around deleting people's channels, he said, I'd like to have it, to show my children at some point in the future. So I don't know. There may be weird stuff on my channel that's not tarot related in light of that thought, of that conversation I had with my son.
What are you going to get at your channel? You're going to get Nancy at your channel, right?
I guess so.
That's right.
I guess so.
And that's why we come. Because anybody can show just any deck, or whatever. You're putting your spin on it. That's why I've said it before. If someone says, well, lots of other people have done that on their channel. So what? You haven't done it on your channel and people are coming to your channel. So don't feel, for anybody that's seeing this, that says, well, I'm not going to do that because tons of other people have done that. So what? Do it anyways.
I like that. That's why I don't do a whole lot of deck reviews. I'm like, oh, there's a million of these online already. Unless it's a deck I really, really love. Or I do, I'll show decks that I don't see. If I don't see them online or I see them very rarely, I'll pull out some of these obscure decks out of my collection and I'll show them because I think they deserve some attention.
Exactly. So Bosadie, hi sweetie. She says, can you do a flip through of your incomplete deck, please? Yeah, she would like to see that on your channel.
Okay. At some point I will.
Naomi says, I love a day in the life kind of videos. Yes. And Cindy says, yes, we would love to see you fish and all the scenery.
And
Robin
okay.
says, Nancy, are you going to film a skeet shoot?
You know, I thought about that after I was talking about with Robin because, I'm in Texas and I learned to shoot from my husband. And I see a couple questions in here like, have I tried bibliomancy and was it accurate? I have tried that and it has been. It's not something I do very often. And then I like this. Leanne is, how did I meet my husband? She's being snoopy. Mutual friends. And my husband is 20 years older than me. And I was actually getting ready to move to Alaska. I had decided that, I was tired of Dallas and corporate life, and I was getting ready to move to Sitka, Alaska. And
wow,
in the firm that I worked in, this gentleman joined our firm, and he came in one day and he was talking to me. And yeah, I have some, kind of my interests. I love, 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 love to travel. And I love the outdoors. I mean, I was raised with Tennessee walking horses. I mean, I was raised on a farm. But I also love the city and, I love to read and paint and all these things. And so this gentleman joined our firm. He goes, oh, you should meet my best friend. Y'all have so much in common. And, he needs a friend. So I'm like, okay. So, I talking to him on Facebook, kind of messaged him and we'd talk back and forth. Well, then we started messaging on Facebook all the time. And then one day he's like, I can't type as fast as you. Can we just talk on the phone? So we started talking on the phone a lot. And we decided to, and I had met him in my office a few times, but we had decided that we were going to go to the Campbell Art Museum in Fort Worth. There was a samurai exhibit with all the armor from the horses, and there's a family in Texas that has like the world's largest collection of that stuff, and they were showing it at the museum there. So we decided to go over and do that, spend some time at the museums in there, and boy, we just clicked. And so when his friends found out later, they go, what? We didn't mean for you to be a couple. We just thought you'd be friends. So I think we surprised everyone, but we just clicked. And, we have actually a lot in common, and he's very grounding. And because I can get off into these, mythical worlds, and he's very grounding effect on me. So it's been nice. And we love to travel together. We do a lot of traveling together. And so we have fun out here in the country. And that's how I met him. So
Leanne says it's perfectly valid to do a video that's out there a million times already. Yours may be for the first that we come across. Exactly. Besides, those other channels or videos might be deleted and yours will be the only one. Exactly. But they're hearing your perspective. So, oh, another question she has. Are you a jealous person?
No, I don't think so. I think I went through some jealousy stuff when I was younger. When I say younger, I mean 19, 20. It's just poison. There's no point in it. And especially after my knee accident was a pivotal. I was 35. God, it's been 20 years. Okay. I had a knee accident, martial arts accident. I left my home that evening to go to my class, take my son to his class, and I didn't come home for 8 weeks. I was in the hospital.
Gosh.
And I wasn't sure I was going to walk again. And boy, that shifted. And it was a rough year. I mean, it was a very difficult year in healing and being in a wheelchair and learning to walk again. And that shifted so many things. I was working full time. I was going to school. I was trying to get into law school at the time. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Because I was a paralegal at that time. I didn't even really like what I did, but I knew it and I was good at it. So I thought, I'm going to go to law school. But that's not who I was. And that accident showed me that. And I was burning the candle too much at one end. And that shifted every priority in my life. It was about living simply, being with family. and trying to be healthy and focus on what really mattered. I mean, it was a life altering experience. And I've had a few of those kind of calls in my life. I had the whole near death experience when I was 25, went out of the whole body, the whole bit. And then, you know, that experience of that, there's just, life is too short that's what the no TV, live simple, you know, trying to live simple. And that was the thing that changed that for me majorly, shifted a whole bunch of things for me.
What do you like best about being a woman? Leanne is like the queen of questions, okay? I'm just saying. She's wonderful.
I love being a woman. I feel like I probably have incarnated many times as a woman. I love the fact that I can have life within my body. I loved being pregnant. I loved having a child. I only had one, but wasn't for the lack of trying to have more. And so I love being a woman. I love everything about the femininity and the dark mysteries and being in touch with the natural cycles of the moon. And I love that.
All right. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. And I've seriously got to get over to your channel more often. You are an amazing lady. Seriously.
Thank you. Thank you.
But
thank you for having me today.
I don't know how much of all these things that you are putting in your channel. If you're not
really, no.
You definitely need to be. People want to hear this kind of stuff. Trust me. They want to hear it.
Okay, I will consider it. And Rachele, when I came on here today, I was so nervous, and you have put me so at ease, and I appreciate that about you. You're very gracious.
My pleasure.
So thank you. And thank you for everyone that showed up today. I appreciate it, and I'm sorry I couldn't interact more. I just not used to doing the lives.
You did great. You did great. One last question, though, that Jonathan has. Tarot or Oracle? If you had to give up one, which one would you keep?
Oh, that's not fair. If I could only have one Oracle deck ever, or just one deck ever, it'd be Mag's Oracle, the Tree Whisper Oracle that she just did. But I could never give up tarot. But I do know if I could only ever have one deck ever again in my life, it would be this one deck. That's how much I love it that she did.
I need to check that out. I'm going to check out your walkthrough.
Yeah. And she's an amazing. She's amazing. I swear Mags is short for magical, you know?
Yes. Her Instagram, all the close pictures she gets of like the mushrooms and the trees and the butterflies and the sunset. It's just awe-inspiring. So
yeah.
So, well, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Tuesday. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Wishing you all bright blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.